Before we get started, we were just been having a great conversation, and you guys have walked right in on that conversation. So, yes, that's right.
The pre-panel. Post-panel.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. There's a show.
There's a show.
See how easy? See how easy? The post-panel show. What?
And as we've been talking, I'm just sitting here thinking, that being that we've both done radio,
Yeah.
Here's a show, you can't do that on television.
Yeah.
I bet you there's a radio, you can't do that on radio. I'm not sure how long my job would last.
I can, it is, and I can tell you of the children on the show who would be the most fun to get in a booth with would be the ones that you wouldn't lend them the keys to your car. In the booth. The beautiful thing about a sad event, Les Lye was in a very, very serious car accident many, many years earlier. And they had to do plastic reconstructive surgery. Yeah. And as a result of the surgery, he had no taste, he couldn't taste anything. So he would get the props guys to load the fridge with the most impossibly inappropriate food that should never be eaten together. And he would, when we were ever doing a thing in the kitchen, or he's supposed to be eating something,
yeah.
He would take out things that you should never ever eat together, because oh my God, and he would just sit there and eat them, and it wasn't in the script, and the kids would, like, it's a gag reflex, you don't no.
I don't think there's anything wrong
like,
with that,
it would
personally.
be like pickles and Nutella.
Oh yeah.
And drink and wash it down with A1 sauce. There you see, right? So, but he's not taking the stuff out of the fridge and saying, I think I'll do this. No, he just take the stuff out and sit down and start eating it. And the kids are going, oh, because, but they're rolling. Mm-hmm. They're rolling. So we're catching all this stuff, and then they're using it as reaction shots. Because and I said to him, when he was chewing shallots and with A1 sauce, and I said, do you own shares in Tums? Like, what are you doing? And he said, I can't taste a thing. And I said, but don't you have indigestion? And he said, oh, I have everything. And I said, all of a sudden, I'm very happy to be this wife. I don't want to be the wife you live with. What a disgusting thing. We did things to set those kids up so often that, and they never really saw it coming.
No.
They never saw it coming, because grown-ups don't do that. But we did all the time, and that's the best part. The best part is when you can surprise a child. There was this one kid in the later seasons who had a lot of anger, and so he wasn't performing well that day. And the sequence was that Mom accidentally spills a bowl of toothpaste after you brush your teeth and you spit into the bowl. She accidentally spills it on him all over his jacket. And so I accidentally did it wrong 3 times. So his clothing is, they're wiping him down, and it's awful. And when we're getting ready to do number 4, and he said, do you think you could maybe get this right? And I said, well, I'm sure I can, dear. Unless, of course, I was perhaps getting it wrong on purpose from the beginning. What? And then he was in exactly the right frame of rage, and we shot the.
And then,
oh yeah, it was a blatant setup. It was a blatant setup, and it wasn't until afterwards he said, you did that on purpose. And I said, I know, dear. And you don't need to thank me. And he just steam coming out of his ears.
Yeah, he should have been thanking you, because then if there's like, here, I'm going to pay you or whatever.
He just had no clue.
Well, there you go. That's awesome.
Yeah,
That's
fun.
It's got to be. If you're not having fun on a show, like, you can't do that on television, you're in the wrong business.
You're in the wrong business.
Yeah.
And then the other thing that was a terrible thing, there was a union representative at the time who was not fond of me. We're not sure why. She wasn't fond of a lot of people, but me in particular, she was really not fond of.
Mm-hmm.
Really?
And it annoyed her that I was doing well.
Oh, yeah. Some people are like
But the thing is, she's my union rep. I'm supposed to be doing well, right? But she, for some reason, and she would say, and she had this British accent, and she would say, "You don't belong in Ottawa, Abby. You should go somewhere else." And where do you want me to go? I don't know, just not here. And this is my rep. So I was taking her name in vain one day in between takes, and Roger Price, the producer, said, "You do her accent very well. I don't like her either." And he said, "I think we need to create a character." So if you've watched You Can't Do That on television, that's the librarian.
Oh, yeah.
Have you what do you want, little boy? Why are there always so many children in this library? It's a school library.
Did the union rep know that this happened, that it was all... Awesome. You're awesome. I thought you guys captured that.
That's awesome.
Karma.
Everybody likes you, Abby. She once said, the only reason producers hire you is they pity you. And I burst out laughing, and I said, that's the silliest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. Producers don't have a heart. They can't feel anything. They don't even know what pity is.
No.
Except there's not enough money. That's the pity. So every time we had the librarian, and she didn't have a name, she was just the librarian.
The librarian.
And so the other thing taking the riff on my radio partner who was narcoleptic, I had her being narcoleptic too. So she would quite often, if you look at the episode, her head is face down in a book on the desk, right? And a kid would come in and either slam a book down or say, "Miss," and she'd say, "Hello! Hello! What are you doing here? Have you washed your hands?" And we get into so much trouble.
That's a good thing. That's a good thing.
I don't know how all of you feel, but if the rule is if you offend everybody, they can't call you on, I don't like the way you spoke about my gerbil. If you offend everything, then there's no discrimination. It's just all in bad taste.
It's like Russell Peters, the comedian.
Yes.
He makes fun of everyone.
Everybody.
You can't be like you're being racist or discriminating.
Yes.
He makes fun of his own self.
Yep.
Yeah, you made fun of left-handed people. Well, hello. And so I think that if there was more of that, as long as it wasn't mean-spirited, and it wasn't even, I wasn't even mean-spirited about her. I was just riffing on the fact that I could do her voice.
That's it. And it just was a caricature.
Oh my God, a caricature.
Yeah.
That's the thing, Les Lye was a genius, just an out-and-out genius. He was a great writer. He was a terrific singer. He played baseball. He could have been professional. What he loved to do was entertain. And he did radio with Gord Atkinson. He had an afternoon show where he would just talk. And then he decided to invent a sidekick named Abernathy. And the beautiful thing about radio is you don't know that there isn't anybody there.
Theater of the mind.
Yeah, so he would have a conversation with Abernathy, and they would argue and fight and kibitz and so on. And after 3 or 4 years of it, he decided that the joke was done. And he announced that Abernathy was leaving the show. And the station got so many angry letters from the listeners saying, if anybody should go, it should be that Les Lye, because we love Abernathy. So the entertainment industry is, to me, is it's fraught with a lot of stuff because people desperately want to be cared about and heard and supported and listened to and all that, valued. And that's a shame because there's so much money riding on it that you get a lot of predators taking advantage of that. And to me, the real beauty and the real raw central core of entertainment is it goes back to storytelling. It is how the tribe knows who we are and where we came from. And one of the things that is so flattering to me, and certainly it was to Les Lye and the kids, is how closely the children identified with our kids, identified with the writing. We didn't write down to them, we didn't preach. The adults were idiots and the kids were long-suffering. And it was harmless, but it was also validating the kids.
Yeah.
That's entertainment. And it doesn't matter if it's television or radio or live theater or, a panel discussion, where you stand on a soapbox and talk to people. As long as the stories are told, then we know who we are and we know where we come from. And, when we discovered that it was crazy Uncle Herman, and that's why we do this and get into so much trouble, it tells us where we fit and how it all works. My ancestors were Vikings, and they didn't have a written language until long after that very short Viking age ended. Yeah. They were only on the move for about 200 years because there were a lot of territorial wars, and they didn't want any part of it, so they just got in their boats and went away. And went to places that looked like fun, Greenland, which was awful, and Iceland, which was lovely, and and the Caribbean, and wherever they went, so that they could just live their lives. They had all these stories that they told. Like 200 years later, people were writing them down. We don't know if the stories that we have read or heard of are even remotely true. It's just some guy writing it down. But the conversations, when at an event like this, what is so amazing, what is so much fun, is people coming to the booth and telling me what their ownership, their love, their memory of the show is. Because what we did is not necessarily what you took away. You took away your own stuff. And it's a remarkable thing to have. I mean, you guys are great. You came in, you defied the odds, found the room. And we're having this very small panel, and it doesn't matter how small it is, because you're going to go away and say to your friends, "Boy, are you an idiot? You missed out on something awesome." Ha ha. So, long rambling chatter before you came. I was telling Bill that what I like more than me talking is you telling me your stuff and your takeaways and the things you like best about your entertainment, what you loved in any of the work that I did. And I don't mean, enough about me, let's talk about you, what did you think of my film? I don't mean that. It's what you took away and owned. Because then it's not me sitting here, talk, and you saying, how many times were you slimed? As soon as we do that, and the answer is 2, so that's out of the way. As soon as we do that, we're having a conversation. It's like we're at a cocktail party. If there was only this many people, and we knew there was only going to be this many people, we could have gone to the restaurant, and we could all order coffee or juice or wine or something, and had a conversation. So is that okay?
I think that's great. Yeah, and we can officially start this now, about 10 minutes in, and say thank you so much for coming, and welcome to this is the last panel of the weekend, and we should all thank Abby Hagyard for. Is it Hagyard? Haggard? How do you really pronounce your last name?
Haggard is how I look.
Yes.
On some.
Oh, that's not true. You look great.
Well, thank you.
I agree. I love your hair. I think it's amazing.
Thank you, darling.
Yes.
Thank you.
I'm jealous. I tried to make my hair look like that.
It needs a lot of conditioner. I had a woman not long ago come up to me and say, "Oh, I love your hair. Is it natural?" And I burst out laughing. And I said, "Don't be ridiculous. Are you out of your mind? Nobody has hair that looks like this." And she said, "Oh, is it a special color? What's the color?" And I like in my head, the guy in this head is, "Oh, like I'm going to tell you."
Yeah.
Piss off. So she said, "Oh, what's the color?" And I said, "It's called expensive." So the idea of the story is, so once upon a time, my dad used to do this when I was a little kid. He would invent bedtime stories, and they all started the same way. Once upon a time, a long time ago, in a far-off land, there lived a king who had a beautiful daughter, the princess. And then he would tell the story. So once upon a time, a long time ago, I was a mom, and I had 120 children. And I think I've kept my figure rather well, really. And I had no idea who most of them were, but they all seemed fairly nice, and I would let them stay for supper. So among the kids, I didn't know who they were you. So, did you have any questions, dear? Is there anything that I could tell you, or what do you want? Do you want me to answer the question? Why? Why can't you learn these things? You look it up. What is the matter with you? So, ask anything you would like to ask me, and I'll see what I can do.
I'll start by telling you, we had a conversation earlier, but as a kid, I'd come home from school, or on a Saturday, whenever the show was on. It was one of those. When I got to it, I didn't pass. I watched the show, and I had this quirky sense of humor as a kid, and so when I would see the show, and I would the slime, and like I said, with Les doing the cook, and the gross food that would come out, and I thought, this is my humor. This is what I love, being gross. Why I don't know. Hopefully I've grown a bit out of that, but I loved the grossness of the show. And so that's what I took from it as I grew up, and it was just the ability for everybody to just have fun with that. And so that's grown up. And I've moved on into other facets of life. Now I'm in radio, and it's what the show and some of the skits and some of the actions that were gross have stayed with me all these years. So
There's a quality in that. We have a couple of voices going on in our heads, and which is not the same thing as a condition where you have multiples and you don't even know that they're there. That's a different thing entirely. But we have these voices, like the thing I just said about the woman. What is the name of the color you use? So, I was raised by British people who, if you can't think of something nice to say, don't say anything. But then I'm have Viking ancestry, so it's a struggle always to not say the immediate thing that springs to mind. So instead, what I do is I perform an end around, and I say that it's expensive, which is a very insulting thing to say, but funny as hell to me. And so that would be my inappropriate, naughtily breaking the social convention. And I think what you're saying is that you love the show because it broke the social convention.
Yeah.
And nobody penalized those kids for doing things.
Absolutely.
There is a great sketch that I remember. It cracked me up. And as I recall, I think we had to shoot it a couple of times because it cracked me up. Doug, at the time, was about 2'3" and long blonde hair. You know who Dougie was on the show? And he was a real brat.
Mm-hmm.
And in the sketch, he's performing surgery on Dad. So we have Dad on an operating table with a huge sheet over him, and Doug in a set of blues with a mask, and he's got a scalpel, and Mom is on the phone, and she's saying, Doctor, is it all right for Doug to be part of this? I see. And then she hangs up and she says, the doctor says whatever it is. Well, in one of the takes, while we were waiting for me to set up what I was supposed to say, I'm just holding the phone, and I don't know who set him up, but one of the crew gave Doug a piece of raw liver.
Oh.
So he had it in his hand. And so picture now, Dad is on the table with this giant sheet over him. Doug's in his thing with the hat and the mask, and he has the scalpel. And he picks up the liver, and he looks at Dad, and he runs the scalpel down the raw liver, and he says, does that tickle? Not scripted. Not scripted. One of the
Love
crew
it.
put him up to it.
Oh.
Don't say anything, kid. Here, do this.
But you had mentioned too that the show, a lot of the crew were able to actually be, behind the scenes help and say things, try this, or why don't you try that, and whereas most shows, the crew is the crew, the cast is the cast, the writers are the writers.
Our producer, Roger Price, was from England, and he had great success with a very similar series over there. And when he went to, I think it was Thames Television he was with, and he went to pitch the idea to the powers that be. And they sat and listened to this idea of his, and the decision maker said, well, you must be joking. Because he said, what do you think? You must be joking. And Roger said, I'm not joking, and that's the name of the show. So very famous in England, You Must Be Joking, was a sort of a teen show with all the irreverent humor and whatnot. Yeah. When he was invited to Canada, and he went to Toronto to the head of CTV to pitch it, and they sat there and listened, and the guy said, you can't do that on television. And Roger said, oh, well, I'm going to, and that's going to be the name of the show.
That's awesome. That's awesome.
So he's such a rebel and has such a mischievous sense of humor, witness Let's Do the Librarian, that if the crew came up with a one-liner, he would say, write it down, and he would pay them a writer's credit. Yeah, and if somebody in the makeup area or the costumes or props came up with something, he would say, let's put it in, let's figure it out.
Yeah.
When I first started on the show, I was replacing Ruth Buzzy, and Ruth Buzzy was on Laugh-In.
Yeah.
And she was a very different kind of actress to my style. Very, very caricatured, very cartoonish, with the hairnet and all that.
Everybody remembers the purse.
The purse, yeah. And the reason that she could hit people with her purse is she looked like a cartoon. And Roger thought it would be funny if I hit people with my purse. And I said, I can't, Roger, I'll get arrested for assault. I look like a regular person. You have to go a long way to make me look as unhuman as Ruth was capable of looking, and then you forgive her because it's clearly a joke. Yeah. But I'm not going to hit the children, at least not on camera. And if never hit them, but I could mention I might, So just keep them in line. So whatever it was that we came up with as an idea, at the beginning Roger would say, we do it this way. But then he would hear somebody say something clever. Yeah. And he would jump on it and say, let's use that. And make sure that he gets a credit for this. And when I got hired, he said, the show is about the children and Les Lye. We have to have a mom because Nickelodeon says so. So there are only two rules. Never upstage the children and never look directly at the camera. And I said, okay. Because it paid $1,000 a day. So, okay. And then as soon as possible and as often as possible, I upstaged the children and looked at the camera. And I also, because I knew Les Lye for years and we worked on other shows together, if he said something confrontational or challenging, I would answer him in Mom's voice. I don't. Really, dear? Well, what a good idea that is. And then I wouldn't look away, and you know, and so, or the kid would say something, you know, Mom, yes, dear, blah 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 blah, and I would just do this. The camera's here. I would just do this, and then look back. You're not supposed to do that, but it was so funny because that's what every adult is thinking. The kid says, "Can we keep the gerbil?" No. And I fed the cat a goldfish. Is that okay? You know? And all adults have had that moment looking at their child thinking, whose are you really? So because I was doing that, Roger liked it because I was breaking the rules. I was being a rebel. And more he would say, hold the camera on Abby for the reaction shot. We'll see if we like it, and if we don't, we'll edit it earlier. Yeah. But I was like the camel getting further and further into a tent, and eventually, we had this conversation one day. He said, "Can you do a French accent?" And I said, "Sure." And he said, "Like, can you do that Catherine Deneuve, those perfume commercials?" And I said, "Tell your man it is beautiful." And he said, "All right, here's what we're going to do." So we did a commercial, and you have to go look for it. And the commercial is called Crème de Peanut. And they slid me into one of Ruth Buzzy's glamorous dresses, which was 4 sizes too small for me. And I couldn't walk in it. And 4 crewmen had to pick me up and carry me like a rug from the dressing room to the studio. And then they slid me on top of a grand piano. Catch your man, Viz. You know, and I did this thing. Crème de peanut. It looks like peanut butter. It smells like peanut butter. It even sticks to the roof of your mouth like peanut butter. It's a great commercial. And I don't look anything like Mom in it. I have this platinum blonde hair, and I have the false eyelashes, and the dress is black sequins with one shoulder missing. In a gazillion years, Roger Price would never have said, "Oh, yes, let's get an adult on the show and do a sexy commercial."
Is that on YouTube now? Sorry, what was the name?
Crème de peanut. CREME. De peanut.
I know this sound is I'm gonna send it to my dad too.
Your dad probably knows it. So everything about the opportunity on a show like that, and what should be an opportunity, is that if you have creative ideas, you should be allowed to run with them. And if you're, working with people, dealing with people in situations where they say, no, we just want you to, you fold, they staple. We don't want any creativity. We don't want anybody thinking outside the box. That's a terrible, I understand that jobs are sometimes difficult to get, but that's a terrible soul-destroying kind of reality, right? So if I said to you, who was your favorite kid on the show and why? It would be a very interesting thing to hear your answers, because it would tell me a lot about the kind of kid you identified with, right? Because your favorite is the one you say, that's me. It's easy to say I had a crush on Moose, or I had a crush on Elizabeth, or I had a crush on Lisa, or I had a crush on Alistair. It's easy to say those things because that's projecting a show like, everybody's saying, oh my God, Degrassi, oh my God, Gilmore Girls, oh my God, I had such a crush on. I'm here to get your advice. I had such a crush on you. Okay, but that doesn't tell us anything about you. If you say to me, I really like Kevin Kupichevsky, I would know that you're a wise guy and you like pulling people's chains. And therefore, when he got away with it, you're going right on. The way you were saying.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
It tells us who you were. And then what we need to do to feel great about ourselves is find more opportunities to channel our inner Kevin or channel our inner Dougie, although that's a danger. Alistair had this boyish wonder about him and such optimism that he could get away with anything. So he would look at you with this wonderful, cute, boyish face, and he's done something. And you don't know what it is. But he's smiling. And you think, oh, geez, now we have to figure out where it is and what he's done.
Dogs do too. You see, if you have a dog, you all like, well, they'll give you the puppy eyes, and you're like, or they'll just smile, and you're like, okay, what are you up to now?
Yep.
It's the same kind of thing.
That was Alistair, right? And Christine, she only auditioned for the show because a girl she knew in school was auditioning, and she didn't think that the girl should get the job, so she competed with her and got the job.
I think she got it. Wow.
So, is anybody brave enough to tell me who they really liked on the show a lot? Anybody? Yes, Greg?
I like Alistair.
And did you like him for that kind of, that boyish innocence and that optimism? Did you feel that he got away with stuff?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I really love Alistair.
What about you, Gary?
For me, it was Alistair and Moose. They were so different. You know, he's been
Alistair and
Moose.
Moose. You know, it's
So grounded and sort of in the eye of the storm all the time. And he was younger and getting away with stuff. And I don't know. It's a toss of food.
that's a great combination. So, Christine, how many times, Bill, have you met people who are just naturally fearless on camera?
If you're on camera, a lot of them are just they just go, but again, not as many as would be say in the room. So a few.
I have never seen a child
Yeah.
and very few adults as spontaneously comfortable and fearless on camera as Christine McGlade.
Yeah.
She would look like dead-eyed Dick. She would look the camera in the eye and talk to it and roll her eyes, and she could ad lib for days, and just
That is something.
it's
is
so rare. Funny thing is that a lot of the kids got burnt out because they would go on the road and they would be mobbed by people and they weren't prepared for it.
Yeah.
Because we didn't tell them they were famous, and they didn't know until they showed up someplace, and there's 10,000 people calling their names, and it's like They went to Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and I said, do you think that's wise? Well, they'll be fine. I said, no, but do you understand how many people are going to mob that float? Do you know how popular the Macy's Day Parade is? And they hadn't really thought of that. And when they came home, Christine was just livid because there's all these screaming kids, and we use their real names. So
Yeah.
you have all these people running at you, screaming your name. Can you imagine?
Probably need a little bit of Tylenol.
Maybe. And you're 12?
Yeah.
You think, Mom. Oh, not Mom. No, not that Mom. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they felt so betrayed, some of them, that the producers didn't prepare them for it. And the producers didn't really put two and two together because nobody made a big fuss of the show when we were making it. So we had the
Yeah.
kids had no idea how big it was.
And I was gonna.
It's at that point, though, that everyone found out when the parade happened and how big it was.
Oh,
that
yeah.
was the first time.
Yes. Yeah.
The Grassy cast, Pat and Stacy, were saying that they actually did have meetings before each season, not just to go over some of the subject matter that the show would do, but also they would break out and talk about, and they would work with therapists, work with professionals to say, people know who you are. You are a celebrity. This is how you should conduct yourself. And they similar to what they do with athletes.
Absolutely.
And say, you're about to be, here's a lot of money and a lot of fame, and here's how you're going to deal with it and help them through that. So
There's
this
a very
is not like it happened a lot on
exactly.
the show.
There's a very funny thing that happens for the public. I wrote a book, not that I'm pitching. I wrote a book called Fame, the collector's edition, because it's fame. It's collector's. So
I like that.
I could write a book called Fans, the collector's edition. And I interviewed a bunch of the kids from the show and some other talent.
Yeah.
And I asked each one of them to give me their personal definition of fame. And I interviewed 25 people. I got 25 completely different definitions of fame.
Yeah.
So the kids obviously were famous when they were 12. Dick Cooper of the Cooper Brothers was famous when he was 30.
Yep.
So how is it different? How did it, impact you? How did it change things? And their answers were not only all different, but they were all really interesting and smart and true. One of my kids, there's a performing arts high school in Ottawa called Canterbury, and one of my proteges from Canterbury, who is a wingnut, and I said, so what's the definition of fame? And he said, okay, I don't know that it's the definition of fame, but if you're chasing it, you're doing it wrong.
Mm.
And I said, honey, that's brilliant.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, well, thanks. When you think about it, when you chase something, you become desperate, and predators can smell it.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want it and you're dedicated, but not desperation, that's just the wrong.
Insanity.
That's
Yeah.
insanity. Another friend, another one of my proteges said, fame is not now. Fame is an echo of the parade gone by.
Wow.
And I said, and you mean that how? He said, people don't go to your concert to see you now. They go to your concert to relive the last time they saw you. They bring that alive and well memory
Yep.
from the last amazing time they had. You go to somebody's house party because the last party was awesome. You go shopping in that store because the last time, oh my God, you scored all these great deals and the prices were amazing, and I'm using the stuff every day.
Yeah.
So you're not going because, gee, I hope they have something now. You assume they do because of before. Christine said, fame is a pedestal. They raise you up so they can see you from a distance. Unfortunately, that's how far away they're looking at you.
Yeah.
So they don't ever know you.
No.
They don't really ever talk to you. And they don't really ever hear you. And so she was, 30 when she told me that. I said, how long have you felt that way? And she said, from the very beginning. Because she was famous. She went on the show on Monday, and on Tuesday she was famous.
Yep.
And people didn't talk to her the same way. Because they're talking to the celebrity. They're talking to the
Yeah.
person they think who they saw on the show or who was in the parade the last time. They're not talking to the real girl, Christine McGlade.
Yep.
It's very funny. It's very funny. Greg and I were laughing at this because it happens all the time. Well, not all the time. I'd slit my wrist if it was all the time. But at these live events, I try to do this and catch myself and stop myself. People come up to you and you say, so did you enjoy the show? Never do that. Because a lot of them will say, not really. Well, okay then. So good talk. Piss off. You didn't like me before, you're not going to like me now. I can say anything I want. And so what would possess somebody to say not really? If they don't, it's the show. And they only ever saw me on television. I'm not real. They're standing there, they would come up and standing looking at the lockers. And this happened yesterday. Oh my God, those lockers, wow. That takes me back. And I'm standing there and I said, hello, dear. And she said, oh, hello. And I said, and did you like Mom? And she said, oh, yeah, I really loved Mom. And I'm standing beside the costume, and the picture of Mom's head, and I'm standing beside it, and it. But I'm not using my hands. I'm saying, "And did you like Mom?" And she said, "Oh yeah, she was crazy." And I said, "You realize that's me, right?" 'Cause, and she said, "Well, no, it can't be you." And I said, "Why not?" And she said, "Well, I mean, come on. How many years ago was that?" And I said, "But I look just like the picture." And she said, "Well, yeah." Right. And I thought, okay, so the good news to take away from this moment is we're not related, and I don't have to feed you at Thanksgiving. Dear God! And somebody said, I'm going to tease him till the end of his life for this. One of the people here said, I have a confession to make. No.
I don't want to hear it.
I never played a role like that. I have a confession to make. So I'm standing there and I'm doing me and I'm being me and I look like this. And he said, I thought you'd be really old with gray hair and maybe a walker.
Oh.
I said, why? And he said, well, come on. I mean, but and then he realized what he'd done, right? Now, inside, the little guy in his head is going, shit, what do I say? What do I say? And he said, you look great. And I said, well, thank you. Why are you so surprised? Oh, my God, you look great. Why isn't it? Well, of course you look great. And I just kept. But the only reason people talk like that is because they're not really talking to the person who lives next door.
Yeah.
You've ceased to be just a person.
Yeah.
And when I was doing the Fame book, which, by the way, I have for sale at the booth, not that I'm pitching, I said fame is small, medium, large, like puddles.
Yeah.
Small stone, small puddle, bloop, small ripples. You can be the employee of the month at Tim Hortons. And everybody at that Tim Hortons knows who you are. You're that insufferable prick who's the employee of the month. When I should have got the designation, because I'm here earlier every day, right? And that will stay with you till the end of time. Because one of my other kids said, when I asked for the definition of fame, she said, you can always be a has-been, but you can never be unfamous. And you imagine, I'm
Yeah.
and I said, that's large what you just said. You can never
That's
not
deep.
be the radio guy.
That's it. Yeah. I've been
Marcus
doing it for so long.
Welby, MD. What was the actor's name?
Oh,
Yeah,
I don't remember.
but we remember Marcus Welby, MD.
Yeah, of course.
Okay, you know what he can't do? He can't sell Amway and show up at your house.
Yeah.
But you're Marcus Welby, MD. Yes, but now I sell Amway. Well, I'm not buying from a doctor. I only played a doctor on television. He can never not be. Perry Mason.
Raymond Burr.
Raymond Burr can never not be Perry Mason. He can be a has-been.
Yeah.
And so it's the same for all of us. All of us have this. There's no need to kneel. We're all friends. It's been how many years since your last confession? So I've just insulted the cameraman. Oh God, I'm dead. Oh God, I'm dead. And now we get even with her. He's now turning. He's turning the thing for the fat shot now. Yeah, fat, fatter, fattest. There you go, Abby. So, you can never not be known for who you were and what you did. You will always be known for that to someone. So my philosophy is, then you might as well enjoy the living daylights out of it.
Yeah.
Because if it's going to be forever, you know, and when I left the business for a little while, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do, because I didn't want to play mom, and I didn't want to be on children's television, and I didn't want to do any of the kinds of roles that I had fallen into. So I went away for long enough for a return, a triumphant return, and I came back as the real me, you know, with the hair and the feather boas and the, you know, the interesting clothes and the attitude, and decided that I would see how I could make a living as the real me, because for a long time I didn't really want to carry the legacy of mom until I realized that I couldn't not carry the legacy of mom. And I think the Care Bears are adorable, but I don't really want to dine out on the Care Bears. I don't want to dine out on just one voice. It was so sweet when these people who've said, "Oh, Care Bears," and then, "So do a Care Bear voice," he says. And so I did all of them, and it was like, oh, you know, because they're always there. Everything you ever did. Yes, dear.
Do you know John Stalker?
I know John Stalker very well. I have a John.
The voice of Sailor Moon.
Of which?
Sailor Moon.
Yes, he did, and he also was Gimmick in Teddy Ruxpin. And I played Gimmick's girlfriend in Teddy Ruxpin, a scientist named Eunice. I have a great John Stalker story. Yeah, yeah. If he finds out, he'll kill me.
We won't tell.
Yeah, is this live? Is this thing on? So
Nope.
testing John, 1, 2. So John Stalker is a brilliant voice actor, and Teddy Ruxpin was shot in Ottawa, recorded in Ottawa, and they flew in people from Los Angeles and Toronto and Montreal and down east and Ottawa and wherever, and they flew everybody in every second weekend for 2 years. For 2 years, we had no lives, and John, just so successful and so busy, and making so much money, and he may have mentioned it a couple of times, and he brought his own headphones. And he was fairly precious about how important it was for a talent like him to have his own headphones, because really the only way you can get the true something that you can hear and you can blah, blah, blah. And we're all standing there going, you know. So yeah, you go, John. So at one point he left one of the recording areas and went to the bathroom, which was a really stupid thing for him to do, because one of the actors, whose name will remain anonymous, and it wasn't me, picked up his headphones and unscrewed the inner part,
Yep.
and filled them with Kleenex,
Oh. So now.
and then screwed it back, put them back, and then we all stood there looking remarkably innocent. John comes back in, and the sound, the more sound man bleeding from the ears. The sound man I'd worked with for years and years and years, and he was dangerous. You'd never turn your back on him. They were all like that, just great people. So we're all standing there, and John has headphones, and he says, "Well, let's get this show on the road," and you know. And he said, "Chuck, I'd like a level." And so Chuck did whatever. And John's going, testing, thing. And he's saying, no, Chuck, there seems to be, you better check the board. We got something, maybe raise the thing or the lower the what's it. And Chuck has no ability to hide anything. He kept turning his head because he's howling with laughter. And at one point he disappeared. You couldn't see him in the window. He'd fallen off his chair. He was laughing so hard. And meanwhile, the rest of us were window mannequins. And the thing is, this went on for like, a good 10 minutes. And he would look up, because he wasn't really paying attention to us. He was chucking this thing. And at one point he looked up and he suddenly realized, because we were all motionless and just standing there. And "What have you done?" He took it. He said, "Do you have any idea how expensive? Do you have any idea what you could have ever?" I'll just, So fortunately, John is a lovely human being. I got over it. And it was really great. I got some work in Toronto. He said, "Did you do it?" No. He said, "Okay, I'll introduce you to a couple of agents down there, and you can get some work." So as a result, because your lives overlap, you just never know how the lives are going to lap. And so John is coming to Fanaticon in Ottawa in August,
Right.
and they're putting his booth next to mine, but in between ours, in the corner, is Robert Boxdall. And Robert Boxdall was LB in Teddy Ruxpin. And LB married on the show, and I played LB's girlfriend and then wife. And LB was the kind of the Brooklyn twig, hey, what you doing kind of. And so her name was Buffy. Oh, LB, I would just mirror whose ever voice that I needed to do. So and then Robert was Prince Aaron, and I was Princess Eruzia, and we decided for our voices that he would do a small Peter O'Toole, and I would do a small Katharine Hepburn. Because they're the same voice, it's just male, female. Right? And so, "Oh, Aaron, whatever shall we do?" And he would say, "I don't know, Eruzia, we must fly off and thing." So I haven't worked with them in ages. It will take us, how long? 3, 2?
And
Yeah, and it'll be right back.
Likely we were never apart.
Never apart. So we weren't in Care Bears together. We did do Teddy Ruxpin, but Robert and John, so many Marvel comics.
Yeah.
So many Marvel. When Robert and I did Fanaticon the first year, we shared a booth. And somebody came up and said, "Oh my gosh, Abby Hagyard." And then she saw Robert's banner right beside mine, and she said, "Oh my God. Abby, what's it like to work with Robert Boxdall?" And I said, "It's kind of like being the first toy opened at Christmas." And I looked at him and I said, "I've never liked you." And he just smiled. That is, I think, what we don't have anymore. We don't have that. Who else? Tell me a favorite character or a favorite memory from any of the shows. Somebody, tell me something that I can relate to.
I just remember the Care Bears, like the theme song. That was always a memory. So then whenever I see Care Bears, I want to start singing it, and I don't care who's around, and I'll start singing it. And then I look like a real weirdo, but such is life. So can I ask you about that? So you were you part of the theme song as well? Did you get to do all that as well, or you were just doing the voices for the characters, or did you get to do that as well?
Sing it?
Yeah, like the actual theme song. Did you get to be part of that when they created it? Because I was kind of curious about that.
So there's an interesting thing about me and singing. They've passed a bylaw. There is an album that was produced,
Okay.
and for the first original 6 bears.
Okay.
Yeah, and every bear had their own theme song.
Wow.
Yeah,
How about
I was 3 bears. Yeah, the sound engineer had to listen to me sing those songs. And we all go to the cemetery fairly often to pay our respects. I have no ability to stay on key. And while that's painful for everybody else, it's also painful for me because I'm not tone deaf. I know how awful I am. And I'm the closest one to me. No. So in the first Care Bears movie, the evil guy was Les Lye. And at one point, I'm singing, and Les's character has to come in on a note that I do. And it brought him to tears. Because it was just that, it's that thing where it hurts to listen to. And that was his key in. Because obviously this was before digital, right? When you could just put it in. No, he had to come in on it. And so he was saying, I'm going to get even with you when we're shooting the next You Can't Do It on Television. So I sang 3 songs. I sang a song in the show. And then in Teddy Ruxpin, I sang as Eleanor Tweeg. I think I go on record as the worst singer who's ever been paid to sing. And then, which is just so wrong on so many levels. There's an amazing guy named Scott Barber who lives in Texas, and he did a documentary on the early beginnings of Nickelodeon. And he called the documentary The Orange Years. And he shot part of the documentary at my Fame book launch in Ottawa. He brought his film crew up. So I was saying to guests coming, yes, I'm launching a book called Fame, and there's a documentary film crew who's going to be there for the, so I'm milking it, right? So then he had to go and get funding because he's an independent. And he calls me here in Texas, and he said, okay, I was going to message you, but I had to call you. So here's the thing. We got the funding. It's been produced. Rolling Stone has reviewed it. Mm-hmm. The beginning of the article that Rolling Stone did, it's your picture. I said, I'm on the cover of Rolling Stone? And he said, yes. And I said, well, isn't that a shame? So then I immediately on social media, I messaged every single musician friend of mine. So, have you ever been on the cover?
How did that go?
The way I look at the upside of it is that I have fewer Christmas cards to write. So, who you saw, since you're reluctant and I'm talking and I'm hogging all the time here, who you saw on any show who reflects back to you something that makes you feel, that's me. It's not, that's who I could be if I was more like my brother. It's the people who really make you laugh, make you smile, and make you feel, oh yeah, oh, I've done that. Oh my God. Or as some people have said, I wish you were my mom. No, you don't. No, you don't. But they wished they had a kind, sweet, benign, not all that there, as opposed to maybe they were having a difficult time. And they wanted that just kind of softness, right? I can't imagine anybody saying they wanted Lance for their dad. But a lot of them did, or they'd like Barth for their dad, or they'd like, why? Because it appealed to their sense of humor. And yeah, exactly.
Comfort. That's what it was with a lot of these shows, the comfort.
Yep.
It is the comfort. Ross, who was such a conniving son of a bitch.
No filter.
No filter. The teacher, where does the school board find them and why do they send them to me? All of those characters that we did, the librarian, have you washed our hands, was so ahead of its time. Because now, the librarian wore gloves, Mom wore gloves, all the characters that I did wore gloves. And the reason was, Nickelodeon saw the first few episodes when I wasn't wearing gloves. And my nails are really short right now because I haven't been to have my nails done. But I have hands. My mother used to say, honey, you have hands that look completely useless. You have hands that look like they haven't done an honest day's work in their entire lives. They look like a dancer's hands or an artist's hands, which is lovely. I can be graceful and I can do all that stuff. But I didn't look like a housewife. The hands didn't match a housewife. So the Nickelodeon people, they sent somebody up and said, we're going to have to replace you. And I said, really? Here's a thought. And I went over to the cupboard and I said, do we have any rubber gloves? So they handed me what they had, which were pink. I put them on. I said, look, Ma, no hands. And they said, oh, yeah, that'll work. So then
Wow.
I...
They were ready to just replace you when that
Yeah.
would have solved the problem, and it did.
Yes. And if I had said, okay then, I could still be working in television. But I got so overexposed. So, oh, who ruined your career? Did you buy the outfit? Yes. Did you buy the wig? Yes. Did you put on gloves so that you could keep the job? Yes. I see then. So the librarian wore white gloves in order, presumably, to keep the books clean. But really, it was to hide my hands. So it's funny seeing the trajectory of the show. First season, no gloves. Second season, pink gloves. Third season, yellow gloves.
Yellow gloves.
And then I was in,
Yeah.
you know. So this whole reason that I wanted to do a panel, the whole reason I'm looking at new and different ways to do entertainment. As a military kid, roughly every 15 minutes, it feels like, you come home and the living room is full of boxes. And you think, well, I was going to be starring in the school play next week. Not anymore. And they pick you up and they take you someplace charming. There's a joke in the military. You have three choices where you'd like to be transferred. So everybody writes London, Paris, Rome. Yeah, and they send you to Cold Lake, Alberta.
Right in between, right?
Really?
Yeah.
Why am I even doing this? We have to fill out the list because we never know. Yeah, okay. Timmins, I see. So, so as a result of the gypsy life, as a result of traveling all over the world and finding yourself in a new place with new social rules and customs that aren't the same as the last ones, and you only had a certain amount of time to get used to the last ones, and you were just kind of getting into the rhythm of it. When you're gone, you show up at the new place, nobody's wearing a kilt but you. The last place, everybody was wearing a kilt because it was the thing. So you're always one step out of pace with everybody else. You're always an outsider. All military brats are outsiders. The emblem for the military brat is the dandelion thistle, because no matter where the wind sends you, those little seeds always sprout, and they can grow anywhere because they are that resilient, they're that flexible, they're that stubborn, they're that resourceful, that they will thrive no matter what you do. And that is a thing that you don't realize you're being taught while you're being taught.
So you're able to adapt to change.
Easily. And I am therefore always out of step with people who have grown up in one town who only know one constant reality. I have no idea what it's like to hang out with the kid I was in grade 2 with. I don't even know where those people are.
Wow.
And so I always say, people who lived in their town, they have a taproot. Military brats have surface roots. The situation that has happened to us, roughly, I think, since the early 2000s, is that there's a lot of sudden uncertainty, and it's a little bit like a minor earthquake all the time. The ground is not really solid beneath our feet, and it makes people anxious, and there's no instructions that came with what do we do. Every time I put something on the shelf, it vibrates and falls, so I don't know how to, so I have to do everything and hold that in place while I do this. We are not equipped to do that. It makes us feel a little bit like losers. It makes our tempers short. It makes us less civilized because we're exhausted. And God damn it doesn't seem that there's anything we can do that's good enough to make whatever that is stop. So we are not connected the way we used to be, and we're not listening, and we're not laughing, and we're not enjoying each other the way we used to, because we don't know what the hell is going on. I read this really interesting article the other day, and the fellow said, When we emerged from lockdown, we emerged with our rage intact. And I thought, that would be why they're spitting on airline stewardesses. That would be why they're punching you in a grocery store. It's not that they're punching you, they're punching, would somebody please stop this? And they don't know how to do it other than to, here's the illustration. If you're over 8 years old, you're not coping well if you suddenly yell at a stranger, "You're not the boss of me." Okay, what are you, 5? You're 45 and you're a CEO. You need to think about what you just said. Did you listen to you? And so I think that the way we can't fix it, because this is an evolution. This is the ocean. These are the waves. We can't fix it. What we can do is recognize that what goes up goes down, what goes away comes back, and eventually it will reach a level of some kind. It's physics, right? When you pull the thing all the way that way, it has to go all the way that way before it comes back to the center. And we have been all the way that way,
Yep.
and somebody let it go of it, and now it's all the way that way, and we're holding on to get to the center. So in the meantime, what I think is this: I am so grateful that I got to be part of half a dozen shows that stand the test of time, that are kind of like a touchstone, that you can go on YouTube for free and watch an episode of You Can't Do That on Television, or the Care Bears, or Teddy Ruxpin, or any of these other things that I did. And you can step out of what this current thing is and go back to where everything felt safe. And we can make you laugh, and the laughter is the positive endorphin that makes you feel great. And then you can say, well, okay, so now where was I? Oh yeah, I've got to go and mow the lawn. And you feel more like you can handle it. People are saying, be the change, become this, do more. And I'm saying, no. You don't have to do more. You don't have to be anything else. You're already everything. You just have to give yourselves permission to be exactly like the kids on those shows and the adults on those shows that you loved, because you are exactly like them. And if you love them, that's the proof that everybody loves you.
Thank you, Abby. Thank you so much. I've learned a lot in this session, and I've taken a lot. I think we all have, and we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here today. This has been
Well,
great.
thank you.
Yeah.
I love Cornwall. I might come back if I'm invited.
I will speak to Randy and Carol, and I will make it happen. How's that?
I would even guest on somebody's radio
show?
if they were. So I'm going to be in Brockville, Fanaticon Brockville, on the 15th of May. Yeah, and I'm going to be in Ottawa at some pop event. Do we know what that is? The pop event?
Yeah, I don't know the exact
End of
name.
June.
Question about that before you go ahead. I do apologize for interrupting. Is there somewhere we can find all these events online where we can be able to know like when they all are? You're telling us that, but just so we don't remember.
Abby Hagyard, Facebook. I'm relentless. I post it all the time. Vikings invented annoying.
No, you're not annoying.
You've only known me today.
With that, we do have to exit. There's another panel coming up. So, Abby, again, thank you very
Thank you.
much. We appreciate
Okay.
it. Coming in. Thank you so much.
Thank you.